Hi there, welcome to my session, and I'm going to take you through Pan-Africanism. And before we look at the origin of Pan-Africanism, let's first define what Pan-Africanism means. Pan-Africanism is derived from two words, Pan and Africa. Pan means all, whereas Africa, it refers to the people or a black people who occupy the African continent. So Pan-Africanism refers to a movement that aims to unite the African people or the people of African descent, be it on cultural grounds, social grounds, economic ground, and political development. So that is the definition of Pan-Africanism. So let's look at the origin of Pan-Africanism. The origin of Pan-Africanism can be attributed to the transatlantic slave trade, also called the transatlantic slave, also called the triangular trade, because it took place between the three continents, that is Europe, Africa, and America. So between 15th and 19th century, there were some rich merchants from Europe, and these merchants they came to West Africa, and then they took the slaves and they shipped them to the new lands, which is in America, the American continent, that is the Northern America, the Central America, as well as the South America, and also Caribbean islands included. So these slaves, they were being greatly mistreated right from their slavery, and they were being denied freedom. Remember, they were free. These were a free people. All of a sudden, they were being taken as slaves. So our free people are being taken as slaves, and they lose their freedom. And these slaves, they were being separated from their families, they were being separated from their siblings. And this transatlantic slave trade is that it involved it involves violence. And obviously, when there is violence, it will lead to injuries. It will also lead to destruction of property, and the worst of all, the loss of lives. So these European traders, they will go into the interior of Africa with the help of their middlemen, and then these middlemen will capture slaves, and then they will come with these slaves to the shores of the Atlantic Ocean on the side of West Africa, and then they will be paraded and branded names and so like animals. And then they were being put into these ships. They were being shipped across to the new world. And these ships were overcrowded. And only a few of them survived, because when they were being overcrowded and they are going on a very long voyage, that we have a pioneer of Pan-Africanism, he was called W.E.B. Du Bois. He said that out of every 4 slaves who left African shores, only one survived, because they were being packed. And while they were in those ships, they were being chained. The reason why they were being chained is that they said they did not want them to cause violence. And they were being chained with metal chain on their necks, on their hands, and even on their feet, so that they don't escape. And some of these slaves, they chose to commit suicide. They chose to die rather than go on this long voyage. So they chose to face the death of the hungry sharks in the Atlantic Ocean rather than to go into the new lands. So again, when they reached the new lands, they were being offloaded, and again they were being stripped naked. They were being paraded. They were being tagged names, and the other humiliating part, it's only the stronger ones, they were being sold at higher price. So if you appeared to be weak, you will be sold at low price, and obviously you will have people who will buy you, obviously not be so many, but those who are those who quote the highest price are those strong masculine slaves. And these slaves were being taken to work in plantations, the tobacco plantation, the sugarcane plantation, the cotton plantation. Some worked at homes as servants. Some also worked at mining sites. Some did public works, that is at the railways, the roads, and also at the factories. So these Africans, they were being despised and ridiculed just because of their skin color and the texture of their hair, which was hard and kinky. No wonder some people, when they are teasing themselves in Kiswahili, they'll tell you uko na nywele ngumu kama steel wire. So they will go there and they were being seen as an inferior race just because they were dark or they were black in color. And these ships that ferried them to the new lands, the Portuguese named them tubeiros, also called the coffin ships, because most of these people died before even they reached the new or the strange lands. So they were now being united in humiliation and griefs. They now became Africans in diaspora, away from home. The Africans who live outside Africans are known as Africans in diaspora. Remember these slaves, as much as they were being shipped from West Africa, some of them came from Central Africa, some came from some came from Southern Africa, some came from East Africa, and now the meeting point was West Africa. So now they were being united in humiliation and grief. And following closely the hills, or following closely the wicked transatlantic slave trade, was the scramble for end partition of Africa that led to a new form of slavery, colonialism. The Africans are now being colonized. As much as the wicked transatlantic slave trade came to an end, the Africans now faced a new form of slavery, colonialism. And among the things that they went through, or among the things that they were being subjected to, were forced labor. They were being forced to work on European farms. And for example, like in Congo, if someone refused to go and pick or collect the wild rubber, their limbs were being cut off. So your limbs will be cut off if you don't provide forced labor during that time. And for the Congo, they were being colonized by the Belgians. And then we have land alienation. They were forcefully evicted from their ancestral lands, and they were being taken to the reserves, which obviously was they were poor, the soils were poor, it was not productive. And then the Europeans took productive land for them, for themselves. And again, they were being subjected to taxation, heavy taxation. So like they paid poll tax, they also paid heart tax, and even breast tax. Again, they were being given poor wages. Apart from forced labor, instead of being given money, they were being given poor wages. And these again, the same wages they are being given, it is heavily taxed. They also discriminated just because of their skin color. They were seen as inferior race. Also, there was corporal punishment. The Africans were mercilessly beaten and they were mercilessly flogged by being given the corporal punishment, even for the slightest mistake that they made. Also, there was rape and death or murder. African women were being murdered, and then African men also were being murdered. African women also were being raped. So women were being raped, men and women also were being murdered. So now we have the transatlantic slave trade. Here comes colonialism. And remember, during all this time, the Africans in diaspora are getting Western education. So when they got Western education, they came together, the Africans in diaspora, they came together to form Pan-Africanism. And this Pan-Africanism, it united Africans of all descent. They they enlightened the Africans on their rights. Also, some of the Africans back at home had gained some form of Western education, so they read, and then they knew their rights, and so they struggled for their own rights and as well as independence. And this was because of economic exploitation, it's because of social injustices. And so Pan-Africanism, it aims at uniting Africans from from the whole world, all African descent, people of African descent. They came together to form Pan-Africanism. And also the Africans in Europe, the Anglophone and Francophone Africans, they came in and they formed Pan-Africanism. And that is how Pan-Africanism was born. So that is the origin of Pan-Africanism.